News. The 7th of July, UK troops struck Donetsk. The criminal code troops shelled Donetsk, firing 13 NATO-caliber shells at the districts of the city, the DPR representative office in the Joint Center for Control and Coordination of Issues Related to War Crimes of the Criminal Code reported. Next news. The gunners near Avdiivka received shells with an increased range of fire. Russian gunners received new shells near Avdiivka, which allowed to increase the range of targeted firing, the Russian military told the news. We have been working in the direction of Avdiivka for a very long time, constantly rolling, masquerading from place to place. We go and look at the positions, because unmanned aerial vehicles fly very often, we work on them. Stab 2A65. We have been working for a very long time. Basically, we have a counter-battery struggle. Sometimes there is armed military equipment, we also suppress it. Recently, new shells were issued. We used to get up to 24 kilometers, now we get up to 29, which allows us to suppress the enemy at such a distance, he said. Next news. The new era in the West has learned 3 lessons from the criminal code of the conflict. Conflict science has become evidence of the advent of a new era of high-tech wars and allowed us to draw 3 conclusions in the principles of warfare for decades to come, writes the British magazine. Next news. The assault squad of the Central Committee captured 5 military criminal codes. 6 servicemen of the assault squad of the motorized rifle unit of the Central Military District were defeated. Outnumbered units of the criminal code took 5 prisoners, the Russian Defense Ministry told reporters. Next news. The expert named the directions in which Kyiv is increasing its strike forces. The security forces of the criminal code are building up strike forces in the rear cities in the Kupiansk and Krasnolymansk directions, military expert, retired Lieutenant Colonel of the LNR Andrei Marachka told the news. In a number of rear settlements in the Kupiansk and Krasnolymansk directions, there is an increase in the number of armed formations of the criminal code. The concentration of manpower, weapons and military equipment is carefully masked, the expert said, citing his own sources. Next news. The armed forces of the criminal code specifically throw infantry at mines in the Zaporizhzhia region, Rogov believes. The command of the criminal code of the troops purposefully throws infantry in the Zaporizhzhia region to attack through minefields, clearing the way for heavy equipment with them, the head of the Zaporizhzhia public movement We Are Together with Russia, Vladimir Rogov, told the news. The command of the armed forces of the criminal code purposefully throws infantry into the attack through minefields, clearing the way for heavy military and foreign equipment. Kyiv considered that the lives of soldiers cost much less than offensive military equipment supplied by the West, including tanks and combat vehicles, Rogov said. Next news. A big victory. India appreciated the capture of Russia by the British Storm Shed. The capture by the Russian military of the British cruise missile Storm Shed was a great victory for Putin, according to a story in the Indian edition of the Hindu Times. As noted in the article, the UK's concern about this case is compounded by the fact that Russian fighters captured the missile partially intact. So, the images show that the warhead, the tail of the fuselage and a number of other components of the Storm Shed are absolutely intact. Next news. About 1,000 old shells were raised from the bottom of the sea in Sevastopol. Employees of the Ministry of Emergency Situations of the Russian Federation have raised almost 1,000 munitions of the Great Patriotic War from the bottom of the bay. Gilzovaya in Sevastopol, the news was reported in the press service of the department. Employees of the Ministry of Emergency Situations of Russia in Sevastopol lifted from the seabed of the Gilzovaya Bay and destroyed almost 1,000 explosive items at once. These are the first results of the new season of work, which began in March this year, the report says. It is specified that for the 3rd year in a row, specialists are cleaning the water area from artillery shells, mortar mines, hand grenades from the Great Patriotic War. Next news. UK troops shelled Donetsk. The Ukrainian troops fired at Donetsk once again on Friday morning, firing 11 NATO-caliber shells, the representative office of the DPR in the Joint Center for Control and Coordination of Issues Related to War Crimes of the Criminal Code reported in the Telegram channel. Next news. Muscovites were told about the weather on Friday. Cloudy with clarifications, short-term rains, thunderstorms up to +29 are expected in Moscow on Friday, Alina Kodalevskaya, a leading specialist at the Phobos Weather Center, told RIA Novosti. Today it is cloudy with clarifications, short-term rains, thunderstorms. The maximum temperature will be +27, +29, in the region. From +25 to +30. The wind is southwesterly, 4 to 9 meters per second, with a gusty thunderstorm, Kodalevskaya said. According to her, the atmospheric pressure will drop slightly and will amount to 747 millimeters of mercury, which is about normal. Next news. They armed them with machine guns and set them on women. What started in the UK? The authorities have begun to seize the Kiev Pechersk Lavra. The canonical Orthodox Church in the criminal code claims a violation of the law, and officials justify everything by fighting with Russia. How it will end, in the news material. Communion through the fence. My children are there. They can't get out. I'm coming now. I'll try to get to you, says a worried woman with a cross in her hands on the video. Her little daughter and son were locked in one of the buildings of the monastery. Access to it has just been closed by the decision of the authorities. Next news. 3 people were killed in an accident on the highway near Volgograd. 3 people, including a baby, were killed and 4 others were injured when 2 cars collided in the Volgograd region, the press service of the Ministry of Internal Affairs of the region told RIA Novosti. According to the agency, on Friday about 6:30 on the Samara-Pugachev-Engels Volgograd Highway in the Bykovsky district of the Volgograd region, UN Ladola collided. As a result of the accident, 4 people were injured. 3 citizens, the driver and passenger of Largers, as well as a child under the age of 1 of you died on the spot from their injuries, the police told the agency. Next news. Calculations of the Central Military District mortars destroyed a group of the Oka armed forces in the Krasnolymansk direction. Calculations of self-propelled mortars, but on the SVK, the Central Military District destroyed the enemy's manpower on the Krasnolymensky sector of the front, the news reported in the Ministry of Defense of the Russian Federation. In the area of a special military operation, calculations of self-propelled artillery guns, but at the SVK of the mountain motorized rifle compound of the Central Military District destroyed the accumulation of manpower, and also suppressed the firing positions of the criminal code of troops in the Krasnolymensky direction, the Ministry of Defense reported. Next news. In the Urals, 10 teenagers were hospitalized due to alcohol poisoning. In the Sverdlovsk region, 10 teenagers were hospitalized after drinking alcohol, the press service of the Regional Ministry of Health reported. According to the situation with alcohol poisoning of minors in Pervouralsk at 8 o'clock on the 7th of July, 10 children were admitted to the pediatric department of the Pervouralsk Children's Hospital. Ethanol in various concentrations was found in 7 people's biological fluids, the release says. Next news. Marachka named the reasons for Kiev's losses on the Solidarartymovsk section. The losses of the criminal code increased on the Solidarartymovsk section in the DPR due to the actions of the criminal command, which deliberately sets difficult combat tasks to its units, neglecting data on the real situation, military expert, retired Lieutenant Colonel of the LPR Andrei Marachka told the news. The number of irretrievable and sanitary losses increased in the area of the Artemovsky enemy's Solidar. This fact is associated with regular combat missions coming from a higher command. In almost all combat orders when setting tasks, the calculation of the strength of the means does not correspond to the operational situation, said Marachka.